We will call this meeting to order and start with the roll call, please.
Mayor Weiss.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lowry.
Here.
Councilmember Feller. Councilmember Sanchez.
Here.
Councilmember Kern.
Here.
At this time, if you would please stand for the invocation. Thank you so much. Please join me in bowing our heads. Father, we come before you to say thank you. Thank you for the privilege, the blessing, the honor it is to reside here in the city of Oceanside. We come together tonight as a diverse community, a community of different backgrounds, different beliefs, different presents, and different futures, yet one common goal, and that is the betterment of the city. We come together tonight to seek your guidance, wisdom, and discernment during the deliberations that transpire this evening, and in doing so, we lift up Mayor Weiss, Deputy Mayor Lowry, Councilmember Feller, Councilmember Sanchez, and Councilmember Kern. Will you grant them peace and wisdom as they lead our city into a bright and prosperous future? We say all these things in your precious name. Amen. And if you would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, flag over here. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you so much.
At this time, I'd like to have the representatives from the San Diego Humane Society come up.
Can everyone see our friends here? We have Cookie and Huey, and they are what we call a bonded pair, which means they have to go home together. So these sweet little pumpkins are approximately probably 5 or 6. And they initially came to us as strays. They were adopted for about 9 months. Were living in a home comfortably, but their family was growing, and so it was a lot of work with their children and the dogs. So they opted to bring the dogs back to us, but we know a lot about them, that they're actually pretty chill little guys. They do enjoy each other's company. They're very social with people, so they will make a great family pet. I do believe that the toddlers kind of threw them a little bit, so maybe not younger children, older children probably would be best. Right now, their adoption fee together is just $15. So we have a $10 adoption promotion going on through the month of October because it is Adopt a Shelter Animal Month. And so we invite you down to SLR to meet them. But any dog in the shelter over the age of 7 months is just $10. So because they're buddies, they're $15. Also, we have free microchipping for October to make sure if your pet does get lost on Halloween that it gets home quickly. We have our Halloween mutt mixer, which is every year. It's a lot of fun where you and your pets can come and come dressed up. You get some goodies and also free photos, and that is October 19th. And then for those of you who are passionate about birds and wildlife, Project Wildlife, which is one of our programs, is offering, we do a Wake Up with Wildlife. It is in San Diego, but it's a great way to learn about how to coexist with wildlife. And this feature on the October 13th is about raptors. So I really do invite you. You get to meet some birds and get to learn a lot about coexisting with our wildlife here in the community. That's it. Thank you.
Joel, you want the dogs? At this point, I'd like to have all those who are here for National Diversity Awareness Month come on down. So Max and whomever else you brought.
Great. I hope you read it because I don't have glasses. Okay. We thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mayor, City Council members as well. We are here to celebrate our 11th year of Pride by the Beach here in Oceanside. It's been established 11 years ago to create more visibility and for our LGBT families and youth here in North San Diego County. The Pride is, Lisa Nava, our Pride Director, will talk about Pride in a minute, but I just wanted to share with everyone the importance of this event, that it just goes beyond the Pride celebration. We have a 40% of homeless youth in North San Diego County that self-identify as LGBT, and the #1 reason is family rejection. At the LGBT Center in Oceanside, we work with kids that are literally kicked out of their homes because their family don't want them because they're LGBT. If you think that doesn't happen here, it happens here. We work with school district, mental health provider, hospitals, the police department, the great team of the chief is here today. We just work to make sure that people are more aware about LGBT, gender identity, and sexual orientation. And the celebration of Pride is just an opportunity for us to make sure that the city strive, as has been in the past years, as a city in North San Diego County that wants to treat everyone equally, with respect. That's why our city has achieved the 100% equality index in California because of the work that the previous mayors and the current mayors are doing. So thank you so much again, and I just would like to give a word to Lisa Nava, our Pride Director, for the Pride celebration. Let us know what's happening the day of. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to our honorable council members and mayor for inviting us here tonight. I am from the city of Encinitas, actually, and I want to say a big round of applause and thank you to Oceanside for standing up and standing out for our community. You set an example that is an example for all the cities here. So our festival is going to be very fun. It is open to all ages, all abilities. We have ASL interpreters. We have people who will help you if you're in a wheelchair. And we have a lot of interactive activities there. We have a Together Strong photo shoot. They're a national company that comes around and does a photo shoot with you, yourself alone, or with another person, showing solidarity with the LGBTQ community. We also have henna tattoos, like a whole tent that's available for staying the whole day if you want to. And of course our main stage where we'll have local talent all day long. The most important and special thing I think that's going to come to Pride this year is our LGBTQ history panel. It's the first time that we've done that. We were going to have 4 people from our community because they can't erase LGBTQ history. And we're going to have a Q&A after that. That starts at 2 o'clock. So if you can make it to that, if you can only make it to one thing, I would say please make it to our history panel on our community stage. And I welcome everybody to come. It's a free festival, so what do you have to lose? It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of rainbows, and a lot of love. Thank you.
Thank you. October 13th, next Saturday from 11 to 5 p.m. here on Civic Center, Pierview Way. It's free. It's children are welcome. There is no alcohol on the premises, so it's open to everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, one last thing.
You need the microphone.
Did you read the proclamation?
I forgot it. So a gift for the city Oceanside. We actually have our wonderful flag that we would like to donate to the city, hoping that the city one day will actually show the flag during the Pride Week here at the city Oceanside. I think to follow the other cities in North San Diego County and South Bay as well will be a great sign of solidarity. So we'll give it to you for a good use, and thank you again. Thank you.
And for our last proclamation, I'd like to have Kurt Munt, and if his staff is going to come down with him in celebration of, in honor of Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week. So I'll let you talk a little bit about it.
No, you got to get in the circle. Keep going that way.
So the state of California has designated the second week in October Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week. Code enforcement officers in the city of Oceanside address approximately 6,000 complaints per year, and by resolving these complaints, address safety and public nuisances, improving the lives of the Oceanside residents. I'd like to thank my staff, everybody, for all your hard work, and thank you, Mayor Weiss, for the proclamation. Our customer care number, which will get routed to us, is 435-4500. If it's a code enforcement concern, it will get routed to our office. Case will be opened and we will address that complaint. Other issues will be filtered to other departments as necessary.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
job, guys.
Closed session report.
Thank you. The City Council met earlier this afternoon in closed session to discuss the following items. Item 1 on the agenda was conference with labor negotiator involving the status of negotiations with the Oceanside Police Officers Association, the Oceanside Fire Management Association, and the management employees of the City of Oceanside. Council also met on item 2, conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation or a significant exposure to litigation in the matter of one case involving a potential threat of litigation from John Korn. There is no action to report on either item 1 or item 2 under the Brown Act.
Great. And before we move to the consent calendar, just for the council's awareness, item number 24 regarding agritourism, it should read introduce the ordinance as opposed to adopt the resolution. Item number 25 should read adopt the resolution, not introduce the ordinance. And with that being said, consent calendar, we have all the items except for item number 15, 18, and 19 have been pulled for discussion by the public. 15, 18, and 19.
I'd like to also pull number 16, move approval for the balance.
Do we have a second?
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0. Item number 15 is adoption of a resolution establishing permit parking per the preferential parking permit program on North Way west of Buena Hills Drive between Vista Way and Mira Pacific Drive, Seaflower Lane, Calle Asuna between North Way and Mira Pacific Drive, and Isabella Drive between North Way and Mira Pacific Drive in the Costa Serena neighborhood. We have 2 public speakers on this item, John Gray followed by Nancy Porter. You can speak now. John Gray and Nancy Porter. Okay, decline.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Is Ms. Porter here?
I'm recusing myself from item number 15.
You're recusing?
Thank you.
Hi. Okay, good, it's on.
Did you want to leave? Yeah.
All right, you can begin now, Ms. Porter. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if the speakers are not here, I'd like to move approval.
Oh, there is a speaker.
Oh.
Ms. Porter.
Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Porter. You can begin.
No, I'm Sheila Cotter. I'm with the City of
I'm so
Oceanside. I thought
sorry.
you said Cotter. I apologize.
My apologies.
Okay.
Let's hear from the speaker who pulled the item.
Yes, so John Gray, Nancy Porter, are either of you here? Or John Gray's already said no, Nancy Porter, no? Okay.
Oh, there she is.
I'm actually just going to decline to speak and let her say her do. I think we're good there.
Do it from there, too.
Okay, I guess city staff, there you go.
I think what I understand is that they support this. They've been working on this, and so I would move approval if I can do that now.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Good job, Tila.
Motion approved, 4-0. Lowry recuse. Item number 16 is approval of a 3-year professional services agreement with Interfaith Community Services in the amount of $73,200 per year to provide homeless case management services for the police department and authorization for the city manager to execute the agreement. And this is Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you. Yes, I pulled this because City of Oceanside in the last couple of years has especially been hit very hard by homeless issues. A number of factors, I'd say Orange County cities, and they're pushing their homeless south to the city of Oceanside and having a severe increase of homeless living in the San Luis River. And I know that the city of Oceanside has been doing things, ahead of some other cities. In fact, some other cities have adopted our hot team concept, maybe calling it something else, but our hot team concept. So now this is to have a second social worker working with the police hot team. Is that correct, Chief?
Honorable Mayor, Council, Councilwoman Sanchez. Actually, last year, what you approved was an agreement to split the social worker, half with the police department, half with housing. This year, we're asking to have that social worker full-time based on the positive outcomes that we saw of having that social worker working directly with our HOT team.
Right, and we also have another full-time social worker, is that correct?
Honorable Mayor, council members, yes, that's correct. The Housing Department or Neighborhood Services Department will have its own full-time social worker as well.
Thank you, and Chief,
And if
lots
I
of things going on right now, a huge increase. We've got a good report from you, basically talking about what this person's going to be able to do, work with previously homeless folks in terms of the Section 8 housing that are now in a place. Now, how many are we talking about in terms of a caseload for this particular item?
Well, I would like to bring one of the HOT team officers that actually works with this social worker down to answer that question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Over there.
Josh?
Hello, my name is Chris Torres. I'm a social worker with Interfaith Community Services. I am implemented with the homeless outreach team on the outreach side of it. I previously did the case management side, and we have a new social worker now. So, as far as the caseload, right now it's capped out at there's only so many people we can reach, 10 to 12. These are intense case management clients. So 10 to 12 is typical for a MSW case management load. If we had more, we could reach more clients. Again, these are chronically homeless Oceanside residents that need intensive case management.
And 10 to 12, the report indicates that several of them have vouchers, and so they actually are living in a home.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Permanent supportive housing, which isn't a temporary solution. It's not a shelter. It is
Right.
permanent supportive housing. That only works with ongoing case management, intensive ongoing case management, and that's where we've found some success, where we can say with a degree of certainty that they have been successfully housed and are maintaining that housing.
Yeah, and without putting you on the spot, what else do you think that we could do to address the significant increase in our homeless in Oceanside?
Continue to address the issue as we have with the homeless outreach team. Again, our goal is to end the cycle of homelessness. There's a lot of supportive services in our area, in North County particularly. Where we see the most success is getting out there and doing outreach. It's very client-centered. We're going to homeless individuals where they are, which it used to make it difficult for them to come into an office hours. So having more people doing that, more social workers, would be very beneficial. The services that we have in North County, and I include Escondido in this as well, are very beneficial, but some of the clients may not know that they exist or know how to access them. And so my job as a social worker is to make sure that clients, people in Oceanside that are homeless, experiencing homelessness, know what those services are, and that was a big gap.
When you talk about homeless, it sounds like you're talking about residents of Oceanside that may have somehow ended up being homeless and then trying to get back into a home situation?
That is correct, but me personally, I consider them residents if they're in Oceanside. They may not have a house, but I still consider them our neighbors. I still consider them people that need help finding permanent housing. And it doesn't have to be in Oceanside. We can reconnect people with families in other places. But when I say residents, I typically mean just people in Oceanside.
There are some requirements, though, aren't there, that if someone comes here from, say, a different county or city, that city or county should also take some kind of responsibility.
We don't. I don't.
You don't track that?
We do. We definitely do. But I don't. When I have a client sitting in front of me, I don't say. I don't bring that up. I let them kind of lead the conversation. And if it's better wherever they came from, then I'm going to work Yeah, and Officer Ferry will touch on it, but we do our best to connect them with the best resource. But we don't, we definitely keep track of where they came from, but I don't make it a point to tell them, hey,
Thank
you need to go back.
Officer, what is the current count of homeless?
We're currently at 483 per the last homeless count. I just want to go back and just touch on something that we were just discussing.
Yeah.
The HUD definition of homelessness has to do with our clients being qualified for the vouchers that remain here in our city. So per that definition, they've got to have some connection here to Oceanside, and chronically homeless is part of that definition. So they've got to be homeless here in our city for more than a couple months or a couple weeks. So the connection here in Oceanside has got to be more than a brief stay. And
was it like 6 months, a year?
A year or more.
Okay.
Typically, yep.
So it benefits us greatly if we can contact them and find out how long they've lived here to figure out how to get others home.
Yes, most definitely.
To their original home.
Yes, and we do also, through diversion, we really try to emphasize that tactic as far as diverting people back to maybe their support group, which might be their family in another state or another city. A lot of times those ties can be regenerated, and that really is successful in getting somebody's homelessness, ending that cycle.
Thank you. Sure. I don't know if anybody else has any questions, but I certainly want to be able to do the maximum that we can to reduce the homeless in Oceanside, and especially with respect to, and I know this is the police department, so of course there are some issues with respect to crime, and we've heard a lot about that in the last few months especially. I'd like to move approval, but I certainly would urge us to continue this dialogue, and perhaps even at the next meeting when we talk about declaring a crisis, that we actually be more aggressive in addressing our homeless in Oceanside. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lowry.
Thank you. So I have a kind of general question, because we get a lot of emails about this exact situation. And people think that the police need to do sweeps of areas to just force people out there who are living in the river. Is that true? Can you do that?
So, I think you're aware that we have a riverbed detail, we have a crime suppression unit, and we have our unit, which is largely non-enforcement unless we absolutely have to be. So we have different tactics to address our homeless issue, and I think it takes a diverse look at the homeless problem to address it and try to end the cycle of homelessness for folks. Sometimes those riverbed details are, well, all the time. I know our riverbed guys give out all of our information. And so everybody they contact in the riverbed, essentially they try to get connected with us if they want our resource. So we all communicate and we all talk and we work together as a team to address our homeless issue.
So my question is kind of around, can we force the people out of wherever it is they're staying?
It depends.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on their activity. It depends on if there is a crime, where the particular location they're habitating, if there's any criminal activity, if there's any legal recourse, then sometimes people can be forced. If they have warrants, if they're folks that are wanted, and it has to do with the standing of the land that they're on. That's the best way I can answer that
Okay,
question.
so thank you. So let's say I'm riding my bike on the trail, the river trail there, and I see tents on both sides. Mm-hmm. And I know one side is not ours and the other side might be ours as far as the city and the other. So how do we deal with the encampments, in particular herds of tents?
Honorable Mayor, council members, so there are guidelines that we have to follow. We can't just go to somebody that we see camped out in a tent and tell them that they have to leave or arrest them. We have to provide them 24 hours notice that they have to leave the area. If they don't, we return the next day after that 24-hour period, then we can remove the encampment. So there is a false sense that because there are no trespassing signs there, that we can just go in and clean out the riverbed, and that is not the case.
So I've noticed that there are more now than we had 6 months ago of people camping all over the place because I ride the trail sometimes. And I'm very concerned that that's sort of creating a village in a sense. So there's nothing we can do about that directly.
Honorable Mayor, council members, Councilmember Lowry or Deputy Mayor Lowry, we are down there every week. We have a very proactive enforcement process. We have cleaned out over several hundred encampments since the first of this year, and we're going to continue with our efforts in this area. And it's just because we give them a 24-hour notice and then they clean up their stuff and they move, they move to another area of the riverbed. So it's a very hard process for our officers to deal with that particular issue. But I can tell you we're very aggressive with it. We've issued over 1,000 tickets since the first of the year. And again, we've cleaned out several hundred encampments, and it's a never-ending process for us. And as you will see in the next fiscal year, we'll be asking for more money to do the same thing as we're doing this year.
Can you address the Boise court ruling and what that means to us?
I'll let
Maybe
the
I
city
should
attorney
do that.
take over that.
So, for the benefit of the public, there was a decision from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in the beginning of this month that basically held that cities cannot criminally enforce their laws against illegal encampment unless the city has available shelter beds. So that means that the city of Boise in that case, and then every other city within the Ninth Circuit, cannot file criminal cases against the homeless for sleeping in public unless the city has available shelter beds and the homeless individuals choose not to utilize them effectively. So in years past, my office has filed hundreds and hundreds of misdemeanor criminal cases for illegal encampment. We have not been filing those more recently, but we still have, the police department's still been engaging in basically civil nuisance abatement by cleaning up these camps on 24-hour notice. But we are not able to criminally cite for illegal encampment in that riverbed activity. We are looking at criminally citing for trespassing, but that requires the district attorney's office to file those actions. And I believe we'll be having future discussions with the DA on that issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Feller.
I just wanted to second and to let the community know that we got a memo earlier this week that the city staff is going to be bringing forward here shortly with a lot of information and what we're hoping to do with the future. So, we're gonna put more people out there. There's no question about that to help this effort. So it doesn't satisfy right now, but it will be something that we can work forward with. And I just, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that they're trying to work out the logistics, and I know she's had meeting with almost the entire staff. So at this point, it hasn't been vetted yet. So I think that's all I have to say. I did second the motion. So
Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0. Next is item number 18, which is adoption of a resolution declaring a temporary shelter crisis in the city of Oceanside from November 1st, 2018 through April 15th, 2019, and suspending the zoning ordinance requirement to allow churches to shelter homeless persons without obtaining a conditional use permit. We have one speaker on this item, Donna McGinty.
We're on 18, Zach?
Yes.
I want the people in Fire Mountain to pay attention to what's going on here with the overnight sheltering. they've had a lot of problems up in their neighborhood with homeless interference and transients coming into their neighborhoods, and a lot of theft going on up there. Latter-day Saints Church is one of those overnight facilities, from what I hear today, and I want the Fire Mountain people to be aware of this, because they need to tighten their gate locks and alarm their kids and put their bikes away and garage their cars, and maybe they get a dog they hadn't thought about getting before. But anyway, it's a bad situation as far as I'm concerned. The places that are being affected, as I see the locations, Brother Bino's is going to be very busy. The Interfaith Services is very busy in the area. There are plenty. The Bread of Life is going to be very busy. There are a lot of places that are accommodating these people, and if I had my way about it, very frankly, I'd give them bus tickets and send them right back to the cities they came from. We don't need to waste staff time and money like we're seeing with these guys in here, having to fool around with illegal transient occupations and trespassing occupations that are going to continue. They could care less what you guys think, and they could care less what these guys think. They're going to enforce their rules. They have their own rules, and you have to follow their rules, not your rules. If you don't follow their rules, they will throw you out of the camps. And there's more than one issue like this. So I want to be sure that Fire Mountain and the other neighborhoods that are connected to these overnight stay facilities at churches, supposed to be churches, but I don't think that's all of what's going on here. I'm very disappointed with what Jack Feller just said. There's all kinds of issues going on behind the scenes to accommodate our interest in what's going on here. When I have to walk the children in my neighborhood on the opposite side of the street and escort them to the stoplight at Mesa and Mission to get them away from the homeless people who are hanging around in my neighborhood at the time the children are going to Mission Elementary School, there's going to be me again standing right here. I'll complain my head off. I'll call it a waste of money. And I'd really like to start taking a close look at auditing some of the interests that are here gaining funding for what's going on. If there's public money involved in this, I'd sure like to see a list of who they are. I'm disappointed in the fact that Jack has made this announcement to us. I've been complaining for years. In the early 40s, my dad told us not to feed the bums.
Our next. We have one more speaker on this item, Sheila Cada.
You know, there's one saying that everybody should have: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. There are many things that can happen to make people homeless. Everybody goes through bad times, and some more than others. There's sickness. Do you know that sickness is the #1 thing that makes people lose their homes? And you know what we need? These temporary shelters are not what works. We need places for people to live. Everybody should care for them. Going in there and rousting them out of the rivers and all that stuff, that's not helping them. Where are they going to go? We need compassion. We need to care for our fellow man. We need to take care of people. Give them a helping hand. Help them up. And there's $18 million or $20 million from the federal government that comes through to San Diego County. We should take that money and get people from the high schools, from the colleges and build homes. And then like Villa Astoria, that place, Villa Astoria, they rent, there's only 38 units there. The builder should have built many more units than 38 units. They let the people move in there and they pay what they can. It's like a sliding scale or whatever. And actually the financing is paid for. They're not putting any money out of their pocket. That money, it's financed by the rent. A lot of people that are homeless, they can get help and get Social Security and get different things and get a job. You know, a lot of people are living in their cars and working 2 jobs and everything else. We need to work with people and care about people, and there are plenty of places along Mission Avenue that are empty lots. Build those places, get people in there and help teach them a trade on how to build and how to do drywall and how to do a floor and everything like that. We can help one another. This thing, go in there and put them in prison or something like that, that costs us more than helping them. This really makes me mad. We need to help our homeless people. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
No more public on this item.
Thank you. This is our annual resolution declaring temporary shelter crisis for the winter. This is basically to suspend zoning ordinance requirements to allow churches to shelter homeless without getting the conditional use permit. And I wanted to kind of underline this because I know we're especially now more sensitive to this really big issue of homelessness that has gotten so much bigger in the last couple of years. Ms. Pierce, can you please explain the requirements that are part of the conditions? For example, requiring individual case management, trained night staffs, watch staff, and medical support services.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Sanchez, Marjorie Pierce, Housing and Neighborhood Services Director. So what this ordinance does is that it relieves the church from getting a CUP to house up to 50 homeless individuals from November 1st through April 15th. In order for a church to be approved, we require them to be a member of the Alliance for Regional Solutions, which hooks them up with the Homeless Information Management System, HMIS, which tracks all of the homeless throughout the area so that we know where services are being provided and duplicate services. We require that they pass fire inspection, health and safety, and that they have case management, because the goal is when they are in the shelter system that they move from the shelter system into permanent supportive housing afterwards.
There is a zero tolerance for alcohol and drugs, and good neighbor policy. Could you talk about the good neighbor policy, please?
Yes. The good neighbor policy is that the shelter provider, the church, has rules that need to be followed. There's also security that's required, and that, like Bread of Life has a rule that they can't go out and panhandle, or they're not allowed to be a member. They're not allowed to be a member, I guess, of the shelter there. They aren't to hang around in the neighborhood. They have case management there, so that on a daily basis they have certain things that they need to achieve before they return to the shelter that evening.
And what is the $66,750? What's that actually going to pay for?
Okay, so the city budgeted that amount of money to contract with the Alliance for Regional Solutions, and it's part of the regional shelter system. So basically, the only church that opens as an individual church here for the full period of time is Bread of Life. So a good amount of that money goes to fund Bread of Life to help them do their shelter, but we send families to Operation Hope and Vista, and so some monies also fund Operation Hope.
How many churches do you anticipate will be doing this besides Bread of Life?
So the only other churches that I'm aware of, there are 3 churches that participate on the Interfaith Rotational Shelter Program, and I kind of have characterized over the 25 years or more that they've been doing this, is that they're kind of the cream of the crop homeless folks. They're between places. They have a lot of them have jobs and are in a temporary homeless situation, and they do a rotational shelter. So there's 3 churches. There used to be 4, but there's currently 3 churches in Oceanside that participate in that, and it's rotational. They either house for 1 week or 2 weeks during the season.
All right.
And each individual area of San Diego County has their own rotational system. So inland, like Escondido, they have their own rotational system. So we're coastal, part of the coastal system.
So if there are some issues, what would people need to do to enforce the good neighbor policy?
Well, if there are issues, they could call me, and then I could help determine how that could be facilitated to stop. But honestly, all these years, we've never received a complaint regarding the 3 or 4 churches participating in the rotational shelter program.
All right.
Ever. Because the church members are the ones that are there running. They do have a professional there, a social worker, but church members usually oversee. They come in, they bring the food, they eat with the clients. Never once had a problem.
Okay, thanks. Move adoption.
Deputy Mayor Lowry.
Thank you. Marjorie, don't run off. I have it's great that you can explain all this in significant detail, but I'm wondering why this is only a 23-week program.
I would say that 11 years ago when the Alliance for Regional Solutions formed, it was based to do a winter shelter system regionally so that no one city had to take on the burden of the problem alone. And it has remained as such. Oceanside does not have a year-round shelter. Recently, Operation Hope was approved for year-round, as was Interfaith and Escondidos, and Carlsbad has a year-round shelter. At this point, we do not, and I don't know whether the shelter provider, which is Bread of Life, has the financial means to operate year-round.
So we would have to budget of our own, on our own funding to make something happen on a year-round basis? Just asking out of curiosity.
I would defer to the city attorney because at this point you're relieving a CUP requirement, and I'm not sure if you went year-round what you would need to do in order to have that approved, other than the financial piece.
Thank you.
So technically, the resolution that you adopt does not directly waive the CUP requirement. That it's simply that we do not require one administratively. What it does do is it provides immunity for the city for any liability for ordinary negligence in the provision of emergency housing. And it also suspends certain other state laws. So the provision of any state or local regulatory statute, regulation, or ordinance that prescribes standards for housing, health, or safety shall be suspended to the extent that strict compliance would prevent the establishment of the shelter. So we have interpreted that, and I think most cities in the county interpret that to not apply their CUP standard for emergency shelters because you couldn't practically do it. You wouldn't be able to process the application and get it to a public hearing and get it approved in the time allowed. If you're going to do it on a permanent basis, you would want to do that as a zone amendment. And we actually have zoning by right for emergency shelters in certain zoning districts in the city. I think in certain industrial zones.
Correct,
So.
and that the current Bread of Life is not in that designated zoning.
So do you think this actually makes a difference? It just matters for a few months and then it's done?
I think that the shelter fills up, so you have 50 people off the streets, individuals, during the winter. And on April 15th, those 50 people are back on the street if they haven't moved. Even the ones that move into permanent housing, those beds get filled up with the next group of people. So yeah, I think that you have an exodus problem on April 15th.
So we have identified 483 people homeless in Oceanside currently, and this will accommodate 50 of them for 23 weeks. And
Correct.
I got a letter in the mail that was 2 sentences long yesterday from a resident, and he said, do we have so many people here, homeless people here, because we have so many services available to them? Wouldn't it be better to eliminate all the services that we offer so that people don't come here for the free services? Do you have an answer to that question? I mean, I didn't know how to respond.
And I've heard that philosophy. I think that we have Oceanside homeless people that have been long-term residents of Oceanside that have strong connections to Oceanside, and they would not leave Oceanside. I think anecdotally, people think that people come because we have services, but there are services in every city, and every city has got a homeless problem. Actually, well, The statistics are is that actually Vista, I think right now in North County, has the highest count of homeless individuals, and our count has been going down over the last 2 years. I know that it's hard for people to see this, and it's a long process when our HOT team makes contact. It's establishing a relationship. It takes time. We have limited vouchers, but I'm somewhat passionate about this because I work directly with these individuals, and we are making progress, and we are housing through the Housing First model, getting people into housing, and they are being successfully housed. We've had homeless people now housed for over 2 years, and progress is slow, but it is making a difference.
So I would like to realize that we have limitations on what we can or cannot do. The limitations being outside agencies like the feds say we can only do so much in the riverbed. We can't necessarily push people out. But I would like to have a meeting with you to discuss what we can do within the city that's legal. And I want to get an idea of how much money that might actually cost, because it's really disturbing to be spending money and not seeing an actual impact, and see the opposite, in fact, which is what we see when we're out there in the public.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor, I do want to add is that on your next agenda, we will be coming back requesting under consent calendar that you declare a shelter crisis here in the city of Oceanside that will allow us to apply for state funding that's been designated for homeless programs. And we will be recommending that the city consider using any monies that we are able to get to increase the officers on our HOT team to potentially either extend and or add social workers. Diversion is very important, because if we can keep people from needing a shelter bed in the first place, Officer Ferry talked about that a little bit, but diversion to keep people from getting into a homeless situation is critical and is very has been very successful. And we also would recommend that we create an incentive program for landlords to rent to folks that are recently experiencing homelessness and getting into their apartment for the first time. So we're looking at devising an incentive program, which we have right now for veteran housing.
So we have approaches coming up in the pipeline right now, and so I can meet with you and you can tell me what exactly that means and how it will impact the community in general. And
I would love to meet with you.
There is no way we're going to get 500 temporary housing units in 6 months at all. Is that possible? I mean, that's what we've got.
I don't believe that that's possible.
Right. Okay, thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0. Next, we have item number 19, which is approval of memorandum of understanding with the North County Transit District for supplemental law enforcement services provided by the Oceanside Police Department. Approval to accept funds from the NCTD to the city estimated at $500,000 annually. Approval to appropriate these funds to the police department, and authorization for the city manager or designee to execute the memorandum of understanding. We have one speaker on this item, Pamela Myers.
Good afternoon, council members, Mayor Weiss, Chief McCoy. I'm here for one reason and one reason only. That is the smoking issue at North County Transit District. I am all for this. I am totally for this. We used to have, NCTD used to have security at the train station. Then they had code enforcement. They got rid of security, then they got code enforcement, got rid of code enforcement, then they did a trial period with the police officers, and now here we are to have a memorandum of understanding for the police department to now basically be at NCTD train station to enforce order, basically. My life has been hell taking the train for about 15 years. This is a fight I wish I never had, and I wish it would go away. But here I am, spending my time because it is so important, and I want everyone to know what my life has been like in 15 years. My life has been hell, as I said. There's over 12 million train passengers, bus passengers, et cetera, that take the facilities here in Oceanside. 12 million passengers. There's a lot of smokers that smoke on our facility. And, excuse me. And I have fought, can I have a little extra time here? I have fought this fight for several years. I never wish I had to fight this fight, but here I am. NCTD never took it seriously, never took it seriously. I contacted them, I begged them, I did whatever I could to try to get them to help in this situation. After 3-4 years, I had enough. After being exposed to secondhand smoke over and over again, triggering asthma, sending me to the hospital several times, I had to do what I had to do in order for me to take public transportation to go to work. So I got an attorney. My attorney helped me. We got NCTD to put a bunch of no smoking signs in Oceanside. There's probably 100 there now. And I also got them to make announcements. Throughout the day, there's some announcements that say no smoking on NCTD property. I wish it was more frequently, but it does happen. Excuse me, this is so important. Please give me some time. I was distracted over here. Unfortunately, NCTD didn't take me seriously, so I got an attorney. I ended up suing them, winning in small claims court. They appealed it to the appeals court. They appealed to the Supreme Court. I won. They appealed it to the appeals court in San Diego. 3 judges denied it. 5 judges heard my case, and I won. Praise God.
Can you wrap it up, Pam?
So I'm asking you today, I'm so happy that this is happening, but I'm begging you to take this seriously. This is the #1 problem we have at the train station.
Please finish,
secondhand
ma'am.
smoke. Okay? It is a health problem. It is a serious health problem. And when you guys were doing your temporary policing, I saw a police officer treat a skateboarder worse than a smoker. He didn't do anything to the smoker.
Pam, please wrap it up.
Thank you. So I'm asking you, take
Pam,
this seriously.
stop.
And write
Thank you.
citation.
No further public on this item.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you. This is a serious problem, and I'm glad that NCTD did impose those laws. Unfortunately, after it did that, they decided to go backwards. And I have heard from Ms. Myers about her case against NCTD in terms of enforcement. Now that we do have OPD taking over the contract before they had their own a contract with another security company. Now it's Oceanside Police Department. So I am definitely requesting that OPD take this seriously because it is a health issue. And so I am asking that we do enforce the no smoking in public laws that we have, and especially at NCTD. So I do move approval of this memorandum of understanding, and I hope that we can keep in mind that there are some people that for whatever reason it affects them more than others. And you know, once upon a time I was a smoker. After I quit, it was while I was in college. After I quit, I couldn't stand the stuff, and it actually made me sick. So you know, it happens. I think most people don't intend to hurt others, intend to cause anybody else any kind of discomfort. But perhaps, you know, when we do these, when officers do cite, then it, you know, starts to make those kind of things decline. So I do support the comments by Ms. Myers. Thank you.
Councilmember Kern.
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll second the motion. I just had one quick question. Chief McCoy, how do you see the this working? Are we going to have full-time officers at the transit center, or are we going to incorporate them on the regular beat for the offices that are downtown? So our resources are stretched pretty thin. Obviously, we have trouble keeping our numbers up in our police department. So how do you see this working?
Honorable Mayor, council members, Councilmember Kern, based on the MOU that we have with North County Transit District, it is for a set dollar amount. That dollar amount is equated into overtime hours. So we will have 2 officers working that facility periodically during this year period of time. It will not be 24-hour coverage. It will be during peak hours. Our goal is to make the transit center as safe as possible for everybody that utilizes that facility, as well as enforcing the codes that are applicable to that transit center.
Okay, I just want to do that. The idea that during the peak hours, I know obviously Ms. Myers has an issue, but also calls for service outside of the contract. Obviously, we get a call for service down there no matter what time we go.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
We'll do item 22.
Yes, item number 22 is adoption of a resolution of intention to approve an amendment to the contract between the city and CalPERS to formally allow the additional 1% of the employer share paid by the unrepresented Classic PERS members to be credited to their individual account, an introduction of an ordinance authorizing the amendment to the contract between the City Council of the City of Oceanside and the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the City Council, Robert O'Brien, Human Resources Director. The item before you tonight is a request to adopt a resolution of intention to amend the existing contract between the City and CalPERS. Additionally, approval of this request would require the City Council's introduction of the ordinance authorizing the contract amendment. As you may recall, in December of 2017, the City Council adopted a resolution approving and implementing an additional 1% in cost sharing for unrepresented Classic PERS members. Now, there were 2 main components to this resolution. The first was a 1% pickup that was effective January 1st of 2018. The second was to move forward with initiating the contract amendment that would allow the additional 1% that was being picked up by these Classic unrepresented members to be credited to their PERS account. In the subsequent months, staff has worked with representatives of CalPERS on the amendment portion. In order for the additional 1% contribution to be credited to an individual PERS member's account, the city must formally adopt the resolution of intent and must introduce an ordinance to proceed with the CalPERS contract amendment. The final adoption of the ordinance would be presented to you in November, assuming we move forward today. Although there's no fiscal impact associated with the contract amendment, the additional 1% contribution that the unrepresented Classic members have been paying since January 1st of 2018 represents approximately $87,000 annually. In conclusion, staff recommends that the City Council adopt the resolution of intent to approve the proposed amendments to the contract between the city and CalPERS and introduce the ordinance authorizing the CalPERS contract amendment. I thank you for your time and attention. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Councilmember Feller.
Thank you. I have no questions. I was briefed on this, and so I move adoption and to approve the amendment.
I'll second.
Councilmember Sanchez. Mr. Mullen.
So you have a resolution in front of you. I'll need to title the ordinance. We're introducing an ordinance as well. This is the introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oceanside authorizing an amendment to the contract between the City Council of the City of Oceanside and the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
At this time, we're going to move into our 6 o'clock public hearing items, but we're going to start with item 25, please.
Yes, item number 25 is adoption of a resolution approving a regular coastal permit for the construction of a 72 square foot balcony expansion to the west facing elevation of an existing single-family home located at 606 south of the Strand. Green balcony addition, applicant Gary Green.
We'll open this public hearing and start with disclosures.
Just staff, and I've been by the site.
I've been by the site.
Staff and I have also been by the site.
No public contact.
Staff only.
All materials been provided to the council.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, members of the public. I'm Scott Nightingale, Senior Planner from the Planning Division, here to present agenda item number 25, which is for the adoption of a resolution approving the regular coastal permit for the construction of a 72 square foot balcony expansion to the west face elevation of the existing single-family home located at 606 South the Strand. Little background, this project did go to the Downtown Advisory Committee where it was reviewed back in July 25th, 2018, and it was unanimously approved, 7-0. Here's an image of the existing home. As you can see, it has an angled west-facing balcony, which also acts somewhat of as a kind of like a carport somewhat over the driveway. Some more images of the home. Here's the balcony from the west. And this is looking north. The existing home, the property is 4,573 square feet. It exists with a 4,020 square foot two-story home with an attached 925 square foot three-car garage, which is constructed in 1997. The property is located off the Strand, and it is located within the demarcated areas here, and it is zoned within the downtown district, subdistrict 4, which allows for single-family homes and multifamily. Here's an image of the proposed site plan. The addition would expand the west-facing balcony approximately 7 feet westward in order to add the 72 square feet to the new balcony space, giving it a new grand total of 322 square feet. Here's an image of what the balcony currently looks like now. As you can see, it is a triangular angled formation. They're just basically going to square that off and make it more rectangular. And that's what it would look like. Here's an image of the elevations. It would give it more of a balanced look. We actually approved about three years ago a project similar to this, just 2 houses down. The expansion would not extend any further westward than the most westward point of the balcony, and it would also meet the required front yard setbacks. When reviewing this project, staff reviewed the project based on the following. It's compatible with the downtown zoning ordinance in terms of development standards. The proposed development will enhance the property as well as the neighborhood and will be consistent with what's in the area and complies with the local coastal program and the general plan. With that, staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the regular coastal permit, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great. This is a public hearing item. Any members of the public who wish to speak on this specific item may come forward at this time. Mayor Weiss, I see none.
Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Kern.
Thank you. So basically, Scott, they're just squaring off that angle. I'd like to have seen an overlay of the existing to propose, but is that, do I get know what you're saying? Because you said at one point the most westerly point is not going to change. It's just going to be straight across. Am I correct?
Councilmember Kern, that's correct. Yeah, they're just basically, as of right now, it's angled. They're going to pop that out.
Okay.
So it's more rectangular shaped.
Move approval.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Yeah, just a question. So did any of the neighbors submit a complaint about this? Or
Councilmember
comments?
Sanchez? No, did not receive any
Okay.
opposition to the project.
Second. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0. Item
24.
Item number 24 is introduction of an ordinance amending Articles 3, 4, 14, and 30 of the zoning ordinance and adoption of a resolution requesting California Coastal Commission certifications of Article 3, 4, and 30 of the comprehensive zoning ordinance, establishing the zoning ordinance text as part of the implementation plan for the local coastal program.
Open a public hearing with disclosures.
Staff.
No public.
Staff only.
All materials been provided to the council.
Mr. Mayor, if we could have a few minutes, our staff members not available.
Go to item number 23. Okay, so we're going to move forward to item number 23 and continue 24 later. Item number 23 is adoption of a resolution adopting the final mitigated negative declaration and associated mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the Grandview Point project, and adoption of a resolution granting the appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of the project, and adoption of a resolution granting the appeal of the Planning Commission's denial and approving tentative map, development plan, and density bonus to allow a 30-lot subdivision and development of 26 single-family homes and 2 accessory dwelling units at a 7.4-acre parcel located at 1902 Grandview Street, APN 151-31038, between Crouch Street and Hunsaker Street, Grandview Point. Applicant, Grandview Community Homes, LLC. Appellant, Grandview Community Homes, LLC.
Open the public hearing and start with disclosures.
Do we need disclosures?
Yes.
I mean, okay. I've had staff. I've been back through the site, and that's it this time.
Passed the property, yeah. Went past the property several times, spoke with staff, a number of emails, a few emails, a couple of emails from residents.
Staff and the public, since it's a redo of the hearing from some time ago.
Staff and public.
Staff, this is basically the second time we've heard this, and we've had some subsequent emails between the two meetings.
Yeah. All materials have been provided to the council, and on that note, on June 20th, 2018, the City Council conducted a public hearing to consider an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision to deny the project. The City Council directed staff to return to the council with findings to deny the project based on the lack of proportionality between the affordable housing units and the project's market rate housing units. The purpose of the hearing on October 3rd today is to consider proposed modifications that address the council's stated concern regarding the proportionality of the affordable housing units.
Thank you, Mayor Weiss, members of the City Council. The item before you is a consideration of a tentative map, development plan, and density bonus project for a 7-acre parcel located on the north side of Grandview Street between Hunsaker and Crouch Street. Tonight, staff is asking the council to adopt the final mitigated negative declaration for the project, to approve the tentative map, which would allow the subdivision of the property, approve the development plan, which would allow the physical development of the site, and to approve the density bonus application, which would allow the applicant to exceed the maximum potential density of the site pursuant to the city's density bonus provisions and state density bonus law. Brief background, the Planning Commission considered this development on October 23rd, 2017, and denied the project 7-0 based on a number of items. On November 6th, 2017, the applicant filed on November 6th, the Planning Commission adopted a resolution and findings denying the project. On November 16th, the applicant filed a timely appeal of that Planning Commission's decision. And on June 20th, 2018, the City Council considered the applicant's appeal and voted to deny the project based on the sole item of proportionality of the proposed income restricted units. Since that June 20th meeting, the applicant has made revisions to the project, which would designate single-family residences as the income restricted units. They're proposed on lots 19 and 26, which are those flashing in magenta there. The proposed residence on lot 19 is a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath, 1,954 square foot residence with a 2-car garage. There's 8 of these unit type 4As proposed in the project. The proposed residence on lot 26 is a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath, 1,700 square foot residence with a 2-car garage. And there are 4 of these unit types proposed within the project. Here's a table that compares the different floor plans within the project. These represent approximately 89 and 102% of the average floor area of all residences proposed for the project. With the changes made, staff finds that the projects, the income restricted units are proportional with the market rate units for the project. Briefly, we're going to discuss a couple items here that the public brought up at the most recent public hearing for this item. The first item has to do with the replacement units as required under state density bonus law. There's a number of requirements outlined in Government Code Section 65915C3. It includes that a project site that includes rental units at the date of application needs to replace those rental units. They have to be of equivalent size. For the purposes of state density bonus law, equivalent size means they have to provide the same number of bedrooms as the units that are being replaced, and it requires them to be placed in the same proportion of lower income rental households to all renter households within the jurisdiction as determined by available data from HUD's Comprehensive Affordable Strategy database. So city records confirm that there are 2 permitted residences at the project site containing a total of 6 bedrooms. The income restricted units that are replacing these, and they're inclusive of the ones that are being reserved for affordable housing. The proposed income restricted units have a total of 7 bedrooms, exceeding the requirement under state density bonus law for the replacement units. The income level of the existing residents of those units are unknown, so there is a requirement to replace when it's unknown what the income levels are. It's presumed that there are lower level income residents that occupy those dwellings, and they're required to be replaced in the same proportion as lower income renters within the city as a whole. And the most recent data shows that approximately 64% of renters in the city of Oceanside fall within one of the 3 low income categories. The project is replacing 100% of the units for folks of lower incomes, specifically the very low income category. So the project thereby complies with all requirements for replacement units as outlined in state law. There was a claim made that the site has some historical significance. There was a mitigated negative declaration prepared for the project, which included a cultural resources survey. Cultural resources survey deferred some of the historical architectural review prior to implementation of the project. During this time, since the City Council last considered this project, the applicant had prepared a historical resource assessment, which found that the project does not qualify under CEQA, as it does not qualify as a historic resource, nor does it meet the criteria for listing on the California Register of Historic Resources, or the city's doesn't qualify under the city's historic preservation ordinances criteria as a historic resource. Thereby, the project does not have any impact on any historic resources. There was issues brought up about the existing physical condition of Grandview Street, not along the project's frontage. The project will improve Grandview Street along its frontage, half width of the road plus 12. Will install sidewalk, curb, and gutter. So if it's the council's direction to improve Grandview Street outside of the scope of this project, it would have to be programmed under the city's engineering capital improvement program. It's not a requirement or an obligation of this project to improve those existing conditions. But there was also some discussion about the addition of a high school at the campus of Lincoln Middle School. There was concern that traffic associated with the introduction of this high school at the middle school would exacerbate existing conditions and proposed conditions were the project to be implemented. The announcement of this high school occurred well after the traffic engineering analysis for the project was prepared. The mitigated negative declaration could not have anticipated this, as there was not public knowledge. So there is a high school that commenced operation this year at the campus of Lincoln Middle School. I spoke with the school's principal yesterday, and they have a total enrollment of 20. The maximum potential enrollment is 270 students at that high school in subsequent years. Where the traffic associated with that is not within the scope or purview of this particular project and would have to be analyzed independently of this project. Finally, there was after the staff report was published, we found an error in the draft of the Affordable Housing Regulatory Agreement, which is going to restrict the proposed income restricted units for a period of 55 years for residents of within the very low income category. And so staff circulated to the council yesterday a revised regulatory agreement, which is with the city clerk now. And we updated on page under the development of affordable units, item 2C and 2D to reflect the proposed units it describes the proposed units in their current configuration of 1,900 and 1,700 square feet respectively. With that, staff is recommending that the City Council approve the project based on the changes made to address the Council's stated concerns regarding proportionality and to adopt the resolution, adopting the final mitigated negative declaration, and adopt the resolution approving the project and overturning the Planning Commission's denial. That concludes my staff report. Bill, for any questions you might have, I know the applicant is here and also has a brief presentation for council's benefit.
At this time, the applicant can come forward and speak.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City staff, and members of the community. My name is Tammy Temple. I'm the project manager for Grandview Community Homes. You may or may not remember me. I stood in front of you at the June 20th meeting and provided a lengthy presentation about the project. And this evening, I'm going to spare you all of those details and just bring you up to date on a few points. After the June 20th City Council meeting, our team had an opportunity to regroup and address the Council's concern of the lack of proportionality of the income restricted units as compared to the market rate units. We addressed the proportionality concern and hope our end results are sufficient to overcome your previous concerns. If you take a look at the slide on the projector, and Sergio also referenced this, we designated 2 homes proposed on lots 19 and 26 as income restricted units for the project. These homes are no different than the other homes throughout the project. They're indistinguishable in terms of their interior and exterior and are reserved as affordable for 55 years. One of the other things that I wanted to remind you of as it relates to this project are some of the community benefits. The project will provide a state-of-the-art gravity sewer system that neighbors can tie into. The project will underground utilities and remove overhead power lines. The project will stabilize northern slopes. We're also looping the water system, and as a result of the project, this will clean up and beautify this existing lot and the surrounding canyons. Lastly, before I turn it back over to you, we did have an opportunity to review the requests from Arlene Hammerschmidt. And although we weren't able to accommodate all of her suggestions, we will definitely work with her on street naming, and we are happy to follow up on her suggestion to plant a macadamia nut tree at the entrance of the project. Before I close, we look forward to being a good neighbor and build a beautiful project. And if there's anything else that our team can answer for you this evening that you have not already been prepared for, our entire team is here. We're happy to answer your questions, and we'd like to thank you again for your time and consideration.
Yes, we have public speakers on this item, about 9 so far. And we'll move forward. I'll call you forward, 4 at a time. First, we have Jay Houston, followed by Heidi Slaughter, followed by Shannon Bryant, and Chris Slaughter. And you can line up at both podiums if you'd like.
Mr. Mayor and Council, we've been here before. I want to remind you that that this project, when the Planning Commission denied it, public safety on Grandview was one of their major concerns. That was also brought up by one of the councilwomen here the last time. Mr. Mayor, you would not allow that as the denial, so you didn't have to mitigate anything. You had another chance at the bite of the apple. You could have had them have on-site parking, adequate on the street. They're going to generate 50 to 70 kids that are going to go across to the school, go across to that field. They're not going to walk up the north side of Grandview and cross at Krause. They're going to go right across the street. So you could have put in a 3-way stop. You could have put in a pedestrian-activated stoplight. You could have put in speed bumps. You could have put in curb and sidewalk and gutter. Staff said, oh, you can't require a developer to do that. My project that I built, the city required me to grind and regrade Grandview to correct the pre-existing drainage issue and save 27 trees of what they say is not a historical macadamia grove. It was when I built. So right now, we're going to create a problem with high school kids driving out there. We're going to have an accident someday, and a child will get hurt or killed. And you think Mr. Korn's lawsuit threat against you guys is something the city wants to face? Wait until you get a wrongful death suit. And I have children and grandchildren that are impacted by this. Now, I know you're probably feeling pressure to prove it, to get a bucket list check off with the state on affordable housing, but this is the wrong project in the wrong place. You can do that in other areas of the city. So I'm just asking you to consider that, because when you vote on this, you'll go home tonight and your family say, well, what'd you do tonight? Oh, well, we approved a bad project, but don't worry, it's not going to affect our family because we don't live in that neighborhood, but my kids and grandkids do. So shame on you guys if you approve this. Shame on them for bringing it in. Thank you.
Good evening, Councilman, Mayor. I appreciate you guys taking the time to review this. I know that the developer, they're trying to do what they can to get this project to be approved. I live right there. I live, I guess, 15 feet now from the project instead of 5. I don't understand how this many homes is going to have enough parking. There's not really much parking on Grandview. The safety issue's been raised, the grading of the street. People drive through there fast enough already. If you pull into that and try to pull back out, you'll see that it's very difficult to see oncoming traffic. And if you add, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 people in the morning, if not more, driving in and out of there, it's gonna, I mean, it's just a matter of time. There's gonna be accidents. There's gonna be people or kids, there's gonna be, you know, property damaged. There is a safety issue. I know that that's not the main agenda tonight. I mean, it's just a little overcrowding. I honestly don't see the benefit of the low-income housing. Basically, just you're building 2 low-income housings to replace 2, partially 3 low-income housings that are already there. But it's your call. You know, they say you can't fight city council, so you guys are going to do what you want to do. We'd really appreciate you guys reconsidering and maybe requiring them to have less homes, just for the safety issue, more parking for the safety issue, and that's pretty much it.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Oh, my name's Chris Slaughter. I live at 326 Cole Way. Yeah, you could throw a stone from my house.
Hi, I'm Heidi Slaughter, Chris's wife, 326 Cole Way. My issue's the same thing too. I live there. Safety is a huge deal for my family. Sorry. They compare it to the development around the corner. I don't see how that is even the same, because in that development, St. Malo, they have two-car garages that fit 2 cars. They have driveways that fit 2 cars. They have street parking in front of their homes. Grandview project does not have any of that. They can barely fit 2 cars, pretty much just one in the garages, from what the developer has told us in our home. The driveways do not fit 2 cars. You cannot drive, or you cannot park on most of their driveways, and you cannot park on the street in this project. I don't understand where all these cars are going to park. It's a big safety issue, and thank you.
Shannon Bryant.
I live at 325 Colway. I'm in the cul-de-sac, the house to the left there.
Pull your mic towards your mouth. There.
Right there? Thanks. Yeah. I went through a bunch of documents, just a few, 507 pages of the full staff report, and I came across this 1964 aerial photo as well, reviewing some of the geotech type related stuff that they did. This road segment dates back to at least 1964. It has been improved since then. What we're talking about here, I have no idea why Pride at the Beach is up. What we're talking about here tonight is a 300-foot segment of a 60-plus-year-old road. It's a bottleneck. It's a blind S-curve. You know, the entrance that exists today is the same entrance that the development has to have because of the topography of the site and the way the canyon comes up there, where the one house is to the right of the entrance. That area also is an area that floods with most typical measurable rain events. Your city staff are well aware of this. The staff have been out there. They've been flooding it, trying to replicate the same unsafe flooding conditions that we experience. It goes all the way across both lanes of the road. It stays long after the rain events because there's just nowhere to soak it in. There are no storm drains anywhere in that segment. All the water flows down from the nice wide part of Grandview before it hits that low spot, and if we don't do any additional grading or engineered improvements to the actual road, 300 feet of road, that's within just 700 feet of a school. There are no sidewalks in that entire segment. There's no curb and gutter in that entire segment. You can't be disabled and walk in that entire segment. You can't bicycle safely in that segment because you can't share the lane with a car. I myself tried to pull out of that driveway this morning. The cars had to swerve around me because I ended up being over the white line in order to see to my left looking east. And the cars were just coming too fast. I mean, just go there. Just don't rush the project. I am all for high density development. I'm all for low income. I'm all for connecting to the sewer because I hate being on the pumps. They're expensive. But right now, there's an existing 300-foot, 60-plus-year-old road segment that connects the improvements from St. Malo and the improvements from the Colway and Macadamia Grove development. We need it fixed. It's not on the capital improvements projects. It hasn't been looked at for the master plan drainage. It hasn't been looked at as a part of the specific plan. Is it outside the scope of this project? I would say not. It's exactly at the intersection of the sole access road to get into it. And by the way, the part about being in the being able to park, no, you can't park on their private road, and you can't park in the number of driveways that are 18 feet or less. So that leaves about 6 houses you can actually park in the driveway.
Our next 4 speakers are Janet Bledsoe-Lacey, Joan Bachman, Maggie Matthews, and O'Neill Straub.
If he called your name, please come down to the podium.
Thank you. My name is Janet Bledsoe-Lacey. I live at 2165 Grandview Street. And I reference my correspondence that was dated June 16th, 2018, previously submitted to this body. Simply put, this is the wrong project at the wrong location. We are imploring the city to reject this proposal, which is so incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood and will have a devastating impact on the city of Oceanside as a whole, as you are setting the precedent for future developments, not only in Fire Mountain, but throughout the entire city of Oceanside. Every step of the way, this developer has done as little as possible to comply with our building requirements within Oceanside. He has taken advantage of every advantage that he legally could get in preparing this project. It took 2 previous public hearings and then a 3rd public hearing before this body to finally get his attention about the issue of proportionality. I would also ask that you have workshops on defining proportionality so that we avoid this in the future, with a formula being prepared that can address that issue to avoid this in the future. But the developer was pushing then, and he's pushing now. This site is next to 2 schools and provides a safety risk to our students and our personnel going to the schools, with increased traffic and, moreover, the increased congestion that is caused due to the lack of any on-street parking on site at this site. Well, the density bonus laws, and I can be corrected by Mr. Mullins if I'm wrong on this, apparently you cannot, with an affordable housing unit, demand more parking. But you can, because it was written by the developers and it favors the developers, but you can reject this site because it's going to cause more congestion, a safety risk to our students and our personnel as they come to and from this site, and impact our traffic. They have their traffic report. You saw the video with your own eyes. That's what we of this area of Fire Mountain see every school day, in the morning and in the afternoon. And kids are walking in the street where it is indicated, well, that's not really their problem. They are increasing the problem that we have, even if it's within a few feet of their site. We see this daily. We see these kids walking in the street. This is going to increase the on-street parking that's going to push them even farther into the street. This was the wrong project a year ago. It's wrong today. Thank you.
Joan Bachman, Seaside Neighborhood. I'm bringing up another decision that was made to deny the horrible hotel. 50 people sat in here yelling, "Deny it," during the hearing, and 3 members of this body decided to approve a completely inappropriate development in our neighborhood. Please stop doing this to our neighborhoods. We have many problems in our neighborhoods. This tree was just taken down so that we can look at the ugliest Big Lots sign ever. A bunch of pine trees were taken down when CVS was put in, and now we have 17 missing trees on the Big Lots lot. So you're killing us, death by 1,000 cuts here. Putting density into our neighborhoods is a non-starter. We know there's a state law, but you have already paid for the solution to that problem. I pointed this out before. We have commercial sprawl. Commercial sprawl is when you have strip malls. Strip malls fail. Signs of failure would be a puppy mill or something called Guns Unlimited or something like that. That's clearly failure. That's bottom of the barrel tenants. And so we need to stop doing that. You paid for the solution to this problem with the Coast Highway Plan, which taught you about nodes and avenues, and the Oceanside Boulevard Plan, which taught you about embracing the creek and completing the grid. This is what Oceanside Boulevard should look like. Oceanside Boulevard looks like this if you put housing on Oceanside Boulevard. There are 4 office buildings that just got or about to be emptied down there. That is the perfect place for housing. You're kidding yourselves if you think this development has any form of affordable housing in it. It does not. We need to learn from other cities, such as San Diego, with all the neighborhoods that they've destroyed by putting density into the neighborhoods, while leaving something like El Cajon Boulevard, which is a trash heap, that could be a nice place. Oceanside Boulevard could be a beautiful place. It needs density on Oceanside Boulevard, get rid of the strip malls. You've already paid for these solutions. Please restart the Oceanside Boulevard vision, and let's work toward a plan for that. And stop putting in things. I heard some traffic solutions. I heard a macadamia tree. These are not helpful. The people who are going to run into that stoplight on Oceanside Boulevard, jetting up the hill for the horrible hotel, are going to be screaming about it. It is not a solution. Please stop doing this to our neighborhoods. Save our single-family neighborhoods. We have the solution on Coast Highway and Oceanside Boulevard. You've already paid for it. Let's do that and stop doing this to neighborhoods. Thank you.
Hi, Maggie Matthews, Seaside District, and I've been to the Grandview site, the school. I'm assuming you guys have as well. And it's just simply not safe. And for the research not to have been done at all, either before, during, or since the news that the high school is opening and 200 plus students are coming in, high schoolers who are going to do what high schoolers do, which is typically not obeying traffic rules. It's just inherently unsafe. It's mind-boggling to me that this would pass. I mean, I think that you have to put your traffic safety hat on, you have to put your parent hat on, you have to put your doing what's right for the community hats on and vote against this.
Hello, O'Neill Straub. I own the house on Grandview right next to this project. I support this project. Some of the reasons that Tammy stated earlier, they're going to bring in a sewer, which will allow us, which don't have deep pockets, to hook to the sewer without a pump. In fact, I tried to get a permission to install a force main from the neighbors, but the last guy up the hill doesn't want to give another right-of-way. So I'm stuck until this happens. As far as the road safety, seems like a big theme tonight for people. And it is, I admit, the traffic comes through that S-turn at a considerable clip, and there's a fair amount of cars that come through there. The problem is that it's not, we need to fix the amount of traffic in Fire Mountain. That's the last time I was here, I heard a lot about that. There's a lot of people driving through the neighborhood, accessing Walmart from Oceanside Boulevard, or trying to cut the corner instead of getting on to the 5 to go up to Vista Way. They're cutting through the Fire Mountain neighborhood to get to the beach. So I don't blame them. The 5 is gridlocked half the time. So, but that is not a problem of this development, right? This development is bringing much needed housing to the city. Now, it's the reason we have our prices of houses are going up and up is because we just don't have enough. We need it of any size, right? And all our neighborhoods are changing. It's inevitable. People are moving into San Diego. We love it here. Other people want to love it here. So we need to, unfortunately, things just can't remain static the way they are. So it seems like a very nice development. It's well thought out. You couldn't, going in there, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a low income and a regular house. Nobody's going to feel ashamed or like they're sticking out. And the traffic safety is another issue that needs to be addressed. And, but it's not by this project. It's by the city. Maybe because the lady before me, two before me, suggested, you know, that we need to build more housing in Oceanside Boulevard. Well, that's great, but all those people are going to drive over the hill to Walmart. And we need to figure out how to mitigate that so that we don't have a huge traffic problem. There hardly are any sidewalks in the whole Fire Mountain area. There's just a very few right at the school. Because people drop off their kids there. There is no parking right in the area right now where there's no sidewalks and no curb. There's no parking allowed. So it's, you know, that's, and you got to teach your kid to watch where they're walking. You know, it's unfortunate. Hopefully that we can do something else, but it's, once again, not the problem of this developer. So, and I'm looking forward to being able to hook to the sewer. Thank you.
We have two more speakers on this item. Byram Inderedin, and Arlene Hammerschmidt.
Kind of nervous at this. I haven't done it before. My name is Byron Indereden. I live at 1833 Grandview Street. I'm right in the middle of that murder curve, 2 ways. When I moved in there, the first time I moved in there, I wondered why the chain link fence wasn't all there. It didn't take too long for me to find out. There's no chain link fence in front of that house anymore. I do have some boulders out there I put in, and there's been a few cars lost on those boulders. I was sitting in my office upstairs one day, and I heard some squealing tires. Looked out the window real quick, and I see a car spiraling, coming from the left side there, coming from the west down the hill, spiraling midair through there, clear across the street into the neighbor's hedges right there across the street from me. That was the first one I saw. There's been nothing but accidents since then. I've had him hit the boulders out front. And I also look at the fact that we have children coming across there every morning. They're coming across. I've gone out there and told them, I said, walk up in the grass, walk out of the street to try to protect them a little bit. This is ridiculous. And to add another driveway right across the street that's going to have more cars coming in and out, I'm sorry. Use some common sense. Thank you.
Good evening. Arlene Hammerschmidt, Ruralish Fire Mountain. I live on Ivy Road. This is at least some numbers for what we have here in this project about proportional. So this is my number crunching, which is kind of always scary with a partially dyslexic person who flips numbers around. There's probably errors in this, but it comes close. We need to have a quantifiable standard for proportionality. We need some numbers. The next thing is the inappropriate and inconsiderately short amount of time given to the public to analyze, prepare, and respond to these proposed changes. This was mailed on the 21st of June. We had barely 6 full days to prepare. That's an unfair treatment of the public and an advantage to the developer. Public concerns safety concerns have not been addressed. There have been other things considered and changed, but public safety has not been addressed. Public concerns did result in a still flawed historical cultural study, which fails to consider the role of agriculture, specifically macadamia nut production, on the economic development of Oceanside. It also resulted in the applicant now being actually, literally, legally eligible, which they were not previously. The developer has attempted to meet the city requirements for proportional. Please realize that to us public, all of this above translates to the city cares about developers more than our safety. The city cares more about developers than our safety. This is our human experience. I agree, cities should be able to follow our general plans. Those decisions should be made by us, not developers. Very low income restricted housing is perfect for disabled persons, but we still have that sidewalk on Crouch down to the Sprinter that's restrictive. We still have, scratch that. Please, can we have more palatable, varied, aesthetically pleasing exterior design? like Craftsman, Spanish bungalows, beach cottage that accurately reflects Fire Mountain and Oceanside. And oh, you're welcome. This group of citizen researchers basically saved the city's financial rear end by relentlessly pointing out flaws, contradictions, gaps, and errors in previous understanding reports and studies. I, for one, look forward to partnering and being greeted with an open curiosity question like, why do you think this is so? Instead of the W.C. Fields attitude, go away, kid, you bother me, which is thankfully going away. We're seeing less and less of that. Those of you who are here, would you please stand up if you're here tonight about Grandview Point? I pity the slaughters.
This public hearing item, any other members of the public who wish to speak on this specific item who did not turn in a form are welcome to do so at this time. You can just go to the podium.
My name is Kristen Johnson, and when I first moved to Oceanside, I picked out a home in Fire Mountain because of the rural-like atmosphere, beautiful homes on beautiful large lots. I think they're 10,000 square feet each. This development doesn't belong in Fire Mountain at all. It's, for me, the two very low income units are replacing 3 houses that they have to demolish. They are a Trojan horse and a ploy to get a density bonus for the developer, and so that the developer will make more money and the owner of the land will make more money. If the planning department and city council was concerned about more low-income housing, Melrose Heights, in their DEIR, their alternative that was preferred was to have 799 houses, which is 400 more than was approved. That was the preferred regional plan that conforms to the SANDAG and state rules. It's crawling distance to transit. It's right on next to a park, the trails to the park, open space, had everything that is necessary. And when I went to that hearing, not one council person asked about that. I'm like Arlene, I want to cooperate with the city, but I want to have rules that we follow where we put it in the best place and it's not used as a ploy to divide up our large lot neighborhoods. Thank you.
Seeing no one else, we'll close the public hearing portion of this and come back to the, oh, I'm sorry, the developer does have rebuttal time if he wants it.
Yes, she has 17 minutes.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Thanks for hearing from us tonight in our project, and also from the community. We do appreciate their input. Just to respond to a couple of comments, and I'll be brief. I know there's a concern about parking on site. City code requires 52 parking spaces on site. Grandview Point provides 96. There are some driveways that aren't long enough to be able to accommodate a car, but where those are, there is inset parking just adjacent to the driveway. So almost double the amount of parking that's required by the city is being provided by this site. Regarding the concern I heard about landscaping, the way the city code works for landscaping is actually pretty remarkable, because for every tree that we have to take down because of this development, we have to replace it on a caliper per caliper basis on the day they're planted. So that means as those trees grow over time, it's going to be pretty well forested. And today, this site is fairly well blighted. A lot of the trees there have died. And so even for the dead trees that we're going to be removing that are fire hazards, we have to replace those with live trees. And this is essentially going to be a very beautiful kind of jungle, within, after these years take root. It's not going to be like the concern we saw from the woman who was talking about some of the other places around the city. In terms of its compatibility, we designed this with the rest of the neighborhood in mind. I know that Fire Mountain has bigger lots in other areas, but this is the transition site between the industrial below and the rest of Fire Mountain to its south. So we have St. Malo to the east, which is where essentially the same density, and then there's the whole Mountain View neighborhood where we're less dense than the Mountain View neighborhood. So from my view of looking at it, it actually fits in the way it should, although under density bonus law, not that we're leaning on that for this, it doesn't need to. Now on the traffic issue, I know that's folks' biggest concern. We have studied this every which way from Sunday. First of all, I want to also commend your staff. Your staff has scrutinized this project up and down and right and left. We've been at this with them for 3 years. They were extremely professional, but didn't give us, didn't took any breaks like someone suggested. Everything was scrutinized to an extent that I haven't seen on any other project that I've been involved in, throughout my career. So, and through that, we have studied this with our traffic engineer. We've gone back to our traffic engineer 2 or 3 times at staff's request to analyze other aspects which they wanted us to take a look at. And then also we've had meetings, and they've been analyzed by your own traffic engineers internally and your entire engineering department. So I think with all that, we've submitted to you what's going to be a beautiful project that's going to provide much needed housing. And frankly, with the 2 homes that are going to be reserved for 55 years for very low income, we're proud to provide that to the City of Oceanside community, because I think it's going to be wonderful for rent-controlled houses like that to be available in this neighborhood. The people that get to live there, are going to be very happy to be there, and I think we'll be lucky to live there too, because it's going to be beautiful. Thank you very much. Oh, and by the way, if you have any technical questions, we brought our team tonight. That includes our historical guy, our environmental consultant, our traffic engineer, and our civil engineer, and our architect are all here. Thank you very much.
I have been asked to take a break, so we will adjourn until 7 o'clock.